Today. Now, if you live in Nairobi, you understand that a lot of people come out of Nairobi to come and work, and in the evening they enter their cars and matatus and they head out. You ask yourself, where are they heading to? And in these masses, what exactly is happening? And this is the case of Kiambu County, where we have seen Kiambu County by itself is very agriculture rich, very fertile soil, and back in the day, very huge in coffee estates, food stuff. Actually, it was feeding Nairobi. But in the recent years, we've seen a huge reduction of, agricultural land. People are subdividing their lands and selling to real estate developers. What is the impact of this? Well, let's take a look at this particular item. Kenya's landmass has been shrinking by the day as rapid urbanization coupled with the advent of devolution takes center stage. And case in point is one of Kenya's richest counties, Kiambu. Just on the northern side of Nairobi, Kiambu prides itself as a safe haven for large farms, bequeathed with extremely fertile land owing to its geographical positioning to the tropics of Mount Kenya bordering the highlands. With its heavy dense vegetation littered with trees and good weather, the area is among the prime lands a good number of the population aspire to settle in. A drive through the county and one is welcomed by its green ambience. But unlike the former years where land portions were relatively big to scale for agriculture, now the portions are getting smaller. Subdivision of land has been on the rise, and the biggest culprit on this particular issue is the economic incentive to subdivide, sell for development. But what does this portend to the agricultural land, especially in such a county as Kiambu, which is agriculturally rich? Areas like Ruaka were before agricultural land, and now the entire space is covered by buildings. If you go to the bypass, as soon as the bypass opened up, we have had a lot of subdivisions in that area. The lands around the Kamakis and that extent, before, they were about 1 acre and a quarter before, and now most of them have been subdivided into 50 by 100. Eunice Masharia is the County Executive Committee member in charge of land in Kiambu County. She says the county's proximity to the capital city of Nairobi has contributed to the concrete takeover, with massive changes being experienced over the last 2 decades. This is because there is a push from Nairobi to create residential spaces for the middle income. We also have other estates that have come up, like Mega. We have Tatu City that have come up, and these are areas that were primarily agricultural lands. And now we have seen the kind of development that have come up in these areas. This has instigated a shift from the county's traditional agriculture roles, now playing in the league of one of the most attractive for real estate investors. With the rate of land subdivision right now in the county, are you worried of an eventuality that might not especially favor the agricultural land? As a county, actually, we are worried because, you see, Nairobi, previously we were feeding Nairobi with vegetables and fruits and from agricultural parcels. We went to Marigiti in the morning at 4 a.m., 5 a.m., the number of people you find who has brought in their sukuma wikis and brought their spinach was quite high from Kiambu. A spot check shows that under the devolved system of governance, this has created a fertile ground which has birthed a real estate boom. There are realities on the ground, and the reality is people need accommodation. And land in Kiambu is relatively cheaper than land in Nairobi. So there, and then with all the improvement of the communication, Kiambu has benefited a lot in terms of infrastructure, and especially roads and street lightings and everything. So you find a village in Kiambu, in Githongori, Ukondani, that didn't have these facilities, now has facilities. So it is easy to communicate. As any distance
between any point in Kiambu and Nairobi, I don't think you take more than 30 minutes to access. And then with the opening up of the major roads like the one going to Naivasha and Nakuru.
Designed by the best architect in the world. Wow. The back 9, hole number 10 to hole number 18 is playable. And what we are currently doing.
One real estate project that has taken advantage of the growth in housing demand in Kiambu is Miga Golf Estate.
You know, the owners of the agricultural areas are also looking for a higher return. And if you look at the property prices in the last few years, it's either doubling or it's triple of the value that it was there before. So this is one of the things that, you know, it's making now the owners of the previous agricultural land sell it to property developers. The other thing, we know that, you know, in terms of coffee prices, it's improving. It's been improving in the last few years. But the cost of productivity and the cost of producing this coffee is also become high for the small scale farmers. Leave alone the people who've got coffee estate. For the small scale farmers, it's becoming costly for them. That's the reason why you see them now selling land to the property developers.
In Kiambu, land is zoned into agricultural, industrial and residential zones. With residential taking more space by the day, tensions are rising as arable agricultural land is fast diminishing, threatening the nation's food security agenda. A matter that is beginning to raise fundamental questions to the economic planners and policymakers. We understand subdivision of land actually being a prerogative from the Ministry of Lands itself. But when we talk about development, it's primarily focused on the county. Do we experience sort of conflict of interest between these two areas of operation?
Yeah, I think what would happen is that, you know what they call a special board. A board is supposed to sit. When a board sits and we have representation. The county has representation at the board. But sometimes the board doesn't sit. We have what they call special boards. So someone will make an application for subdivision and the board will pass as a special board vote. So when that person has bought the land, they have done their schemes, then they bring those development proposals to us to approve. And at that point then we are telling them, no, we cannot approve for this kind of use because this is not within the zoning for this region. So that is conflict. Because you have someone who invested their money to buy their 10, 20 acres to do, say, a gated community. Yeah? And they have their plans and they have everything. So when they come here now for us to approve that development, we are telling them, no, we do not approve this kind of development in this setting. Or they'll come and apply for change of use from agricultural to residential. And we'll say, no, the area is not zoned for residential.
The county has rezoned some areas to accommodate the supernormal demand for affordable housing. Even though subdividing land makes it more affordable and economically viable, Alex Mosetti, who is a valuer, tells me buyers have to be careful.
If you subdivide like 100 acres, you might get even 500 plots or more. Yeah. So as a layman, it might be hard to know the title you have been given is for which plot specifically. Yeah. So that's where we come in, maybe as professionals in real estate, to ascertain if the property you have been given, even before developing the property, you are sure that's the actual plot. Because we have gotten several cases whereby someone builds on a neighbor's plot because they never did their due diligence well.
Let's say you're buying into an agricultural land. As a developer, you have to go through the normal process of getting a change of use, maybe from agricultural to commercial or residential. Once you do that, you can either get a title, or you find some developers are going for, they don't want to go through that process because it's also costly. They want to pass that cost to the end buyers, and that's now where you find
Us. All right, so that is what is happening on Matters Concrete Takeover. And remember, I think now later on we'll get a personalized story. Somebody who had land and they decided to subdivide